Wire figures such as these can be a lot of fun for students to make, and they can be really easy to do if you're using bendable wire. The weave technique is possibly the most complex, but it is great for making accessories like nets for sporting events or sporting scenes, or for making a wider piece of wire mesh that can be attached onto figures to represent something like a cape and a superhero or even a long skirt. First, you'll need to create a frame, and usually the frame is a square or a rectangle or whatever shape suits your design. Next, you're going to want to start creating what's called the warp. And the warp is the pieces that go from one side to the other of the frame. And you're going to want to secure these to the side of the frame on either side by wrapping the wire a few times just so that it doesn't wiggle around or lose its position. So go ahead and create your warp pieces until you get from one side all the way over to the other side. Once you have finished creating the warp, you are ready to move on to the weft. And the weft goes in the opposite direction, so move to the next edge of the frame, and then just like you did before, you're going to wrap and secure the wire so that it doesn't wiggle around. But this time when you cross over to the other side, you want to follow an over-under pattern. So you're going to go over the first wire that you encounter and then under the next wire and then over and then under, and just keep repeating that until you get to the opposite side. Secure the wire again by wrapping it a few times, and then when you go back in the opposite direction, you're going to follow the opposite pattern. So if the wire that you encounter first, the previous time you encountered that wire, you had gone under, you'll go over. If you had gone over, you'll go under, and repeat that back to the opposite side, going back and forth across the frame that you've made until you've filled up the space. Now, you could always have a tighter weave by using more wire, but that does take more time and it does take up a lot more material. The braid technique is a really good basic technique that is best for making a really sturdy starting point for a figure. It becomes basically the spine or the torso of a wire stick figure. Of course, the braid can also be used in other applications as well. You will need 2 pieces of wire. Fold one piece in half so that the ends meet. Line up one end of the second wire to those 2 ends, and then secure the 2 wire pieces together by wrapping the second wire around the bent intersection a few times so that it secures in place. Pull it really tight. You'll be braiding together the pieces that are towards you, the 3 ends that are towards you. And you would do this in the same way that you would braid your hair or yarn or anything like that. Try to keep the braid tight for increased stability. The longer the braid, the taller a wire figure you'll be making, but 2 to 3 inches long is usually a good length to start with. To end the braid, just twist the wires around a few times, and this will hold the braid in place. The twist technique works really well coming directly off of the same wire that was used for the braid, and it is a great technique for making the head shape. A faster and easier method for the head would be to use just a single untwisted wire end, but it would be less sturdy. You'll use just 2 wires for the twist. Carefully wrap and twist them around each other so that the 2 pieces together resemble a unicorn horn. The extra third wire can just be pushed aside for now. The twisted section should be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches long to make a good proportionate size head to the torso. When you have a long enough twist, wrap the twisted wire around a few fingers to form a loop and secure the end by wrapping them around a few times at the base near the braid. This makes the head for the wire figure. The 2 pieces that you just wrapped to secure the twisted wire in place become the arm pieces. You can use the twist technique again to form the arms. You could keep the arms as a single wire, which is really easy to bend and pose, or you could use the coil technique. The coil technique is really fun and one of the easier techniques to master. You will need a stick of some sort to wrap the wire around. A wooden stylus or a short skewer works really well. Place the end of the stick close to where the wire comes out from the head, and then wrap the wire around and around and around the stick. Try to keep the wire close together. When you get to the end, carefully pull the stick out, and you should have a nice springy coil. You can keep this as it is, or you could bend the end into a small loop to make the hand. Just remember to do the same thing for the other arm and the other hand. Okay, so now I am ready to get rid of this extra piece that was left over, so I'm going to grab the wire cutters and just go ahead and cut that off by squeezing, and sometimes it helps to wiggle the wire a little bit and then just pull it and it should come right off. Save that cut off piece because now it will be used as the leg and attached onto the torso. To attach a piece of wire to the end of the torso, first thread the end of the wire through a gap in the braided piece or wrap it around. Threading it through makes it a little bit more secure. You can use needle nose pliers to really pinch that wrapped wire and make it more secure. If you did not make the torso with the braid technique, you can tie the wire on much like you would tie two pieces of string together with a knot. There are a few different ways to finish the legs, but the twist technique is one that I prefer. Just fold the wire in half to bring the end up to the top of the leg, twist a loop at the bottom to become the foot, and then keep twisting tightly in the same way that we did for the head. That way you can finish the leg. If you do this and then you realize that the leg is just too long compared to the torso, Twisty's wire is really forgiving. You can just undo the twist and then trim the wire shorter before twisting it back up again. But make sure to trim the second leg to the same length before redoing the twist. Now that the basic stick figure shape is complete, it's time to add details and give this some personality. I've decided to make my figure a ballet dancer, so I have selected a pink wire to add a leotard and a tutu. Start the leotard by wrapping the wire around the upper part of the braided torso. You can even insert the end into one of the gaps in the braid to keep the wire from slipping out of place. Adding details like clothing is a great chance to just experiment with the wire to figure out through trial and error which techniques work best to achieve the results you're after. As I get to the point that I want to add the tutu, I'm thinking about how a tutu looks and how I can imply that with wire. I've decided to use large loops that I secure in place by wrapping the end of the wire around the torso with each new loop. I could choose to add more wire to make more loops and a fuller tutu. Let's pause a little to talk about beads. I've seen students use beads to add as an accessory for the hair. You can also use these as hands or feet. If you have novelty beads that are like basketballs or footballs or baseballs or soccer balls, they're really great for adding as accessories to your figures, and dispensing them in a little cup or a lid like this keeps them from rolling all over the place. So there are lots of things you can do with beads. I'm not going to use any beads in this example, but if you have them, they're a fun thing to add. Adding hair is another opportunity to experiment to find what works best. I want my dancer to have a top knot bun type hairstyle, so I'm taking a new piece of wire and securing it to the head shape by wrapping it tightly. Then I'm just bending and twisting the wire around itself to get the look that I want. I finish this off by securing the wire to the other side of the head and then cutting off the extra length. You will notice that one leg is sometimes a little more wiggly. You want to plan on the more stable leg holding the figure up, and then you can use the looser leg to create a pose, like a dancer on one foot in this example. You can also play around with the posing and positioning of the arms, and even link the hands together overhead. In addition to my ballet dancer, here are some other examples of figures that you might want to make, including this superhero wearing a cape, and then this person who is dancing or running.